Hello, fourth grade. Today we are going to continue our exploration about different Earth environments. Today we are going to be looking at two very different environments. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that our live stream begins at 1:20. If you want to join me for our live stream, please connect at 1:20. Before we continue, I just want to review the two different environments that we discussed so far. We discussed a rainforest, which is a wet and hot area, which has different kinds of animals. And then we also discussed a desert, which is a dry and hot environment and has plants like cacti and mesquite trees, which don't need much water. The different factors like the temperature and the soil are what help the different plants and animals survive in each environment. We're going to be adding a new environment and we're going to be seeing what is different about the temperature and the soil and as well as what plants and animals are able to survive. Our new environment is a grassland. You will have 1 minute to update your journal and add grassland under desert. So, what are grasslands? Grasslands are wide area of land filled with lots of grass and wildflowers, kind of like the one we see in this picture below. Grasslands are located between a desert and the forest. Grasslands are area that is it receives not enough water to be a forest, but plenty of water not to be considered dry like a desert. Grasslands are found in North America, South America, and Asia. Let's look at the living factors of a grassland. Let's start out by looking at the animals. A variety of animals live in grasslands, like prairie dogs, wolves, turkeys, eagles, foxes, and even geese. There are also a lot of small animals. These small animals are able to use the grass to kind of hide and camouflage from the big animals, like how we see the snake down here. A lot of other small animals include mice and rabbits. Other living factors in grassland are the different plants. A grassland, like the name, the main plant in grassland is grass. Although most grasslands are filled with grass, different areas have different amount of grass. For example, areas that receive a lot of rain, the grass can grow up to being 6 feet high. That is much taller than even me. And then dry grasslands, they still have grass, but the grass doesn't grow that tall. Maybe like 1 or 2 feet tall of grass. And there are occasionally other plants that we see in grassland, like we'll see occasional sunflowers or wildflowers. But the majority of plants in a grassland is grass. Now let's take the time to update page 33 about grasslands and add about plants and animals. As we read, we learned that the plants in grasslands include grass and wildflowers. The animals include prairie dogs, wolves, foxes, and snakes. You will now have a minute and a half to add that into your journal on page 33. Now let's take a look at the non-living factors that make up the environment of a grassland. We're going to start looking at the temperature. I mentioned before, a grassland is in the middle of a forest and a desert. In a grassland, there is not enough water for it to grow into tall trees like a forest. So it is kind of in the middle. Grassland have different seasons, like a hot summer and also cold winters. Like we can see in this picture, we can see how this grassland environment is filled with lots of grass. And we know that plants, in order to grow, need rain. So grasslands do receive a bit of rain. Let's look at other non-living factors, which are the soil. Grasslands usually grow in a flat area of land. Since the area is very flat, it allows for the soil to be very fertile. When soil is fertile, it means that when we plant seeds, it is strong enough to give it its nutrients to be able to grow. Matter of fact, in the United States, most of the areas that are grasslands are used as farms. They can be used as wheat farm or potato farm. That is because grasslands receive just the right amount of rain and the soil is very fertile. We will now update our grassland row non-living factors, temperature and soil in our journal. As we did our exploration about grasslands, we saw that the temperature in grassland it's very in the medium. There is rain, hot summers, and cold winters. The soil in a grassland is very fertile, good for growing plants. You will now have a minute and a half to update grasslands in your journal. Now that we have updated our grassland column, let's go look into our second type of environment, which is called a taiga. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to update your environment column right below grassland and add taiga. A taiga, maybe you haven't heard this word before, but I'm pretty sure you have seen a taiga environment. A taiga is a dry and cold forest. Taiga forests are usually found in the northern hemisphere of our planet Earth, kind of like in the area of Canada or up here, like in Russia. Since they are really up north, these areas are really cold. Let's take a look at what living factors can survive in these dry forests. Since the taiga environment is very cold, the animals need to be able to survive the winter. Some animals even have thick layers of fur. And some animals, like birds, make the choice to migrate south for the winter. Other animals decide to save up their food in the warm months and hibernate, or that means that they sleep during the winter. That way they don't have to be when in the cold environment that is a taiga. Some examples of animals that can survive in a taiga are hawks, wolves, squirrels, moose, and woodpeckers. These animals all have different adaptations that help them survive in a taiga environment. There are other living factors in taigas like the plant. The different plants in taigas are mainly coniferous trees. Coniferous trees grow close together, and similar to a rainforest, since they grow close together, they're able to form like a canopy, kind of like an umbrella that covers the taiga floor, which blocks a lot of sunlight from reaching the soil. These trees have a lot of needles instead of leaves that help them absorb the water that taigas get so that they can continue growing into tall trees. There are other plants that also grow in taigas. Even though there is a canopy being formed by the different coniferous trees, a couple of plants are able to grow in a taiga environment, like fern, moss, and different berries can grow on the ground of a taiga environment. These are the living factors. We are now going to update our taiga row in our journals. We are going to add the living factors of plants and animals. The plants that we see in a taiga environment include coniferous trees like pine and fir, and plants like fern, moss, and berries. The animals include hawks, wolves, squirrels, and moose. You will now have 2 minutes to add that into your taiga row in on page 33. Now let's take a look at the non-living factors that are in a taiga environment, like the temperature. A taiga environment, since it is in the northern hemisphere, the temperature is very cold, sometimes reaching a negative 60 degrees, much, much colder than what the weather gets like in Philadelphia. The winters last for almost 6 months. Imagine half the year just being full on winter. And there are a couple of summers which makes it get a bit warm, but they don't last very long. Taiga environments are very dry environments that only receive about 30 to 76 centimeters of rain per year. So those different trees like the firs or the evergreens have to use their pine needles to absorb the water to be able to use it as nutrients. Let's see what we can learn about the soil in a taiga. The soil in a taiga environment is very thin. There are many reasons why it is thin. One, it doesn't receive a lot of water because of the canopy that is formed above. Also, the leaves don't really fall from the trees, and that doesn't give the soil enough nutrients to be able to grow and be fertile. Also, since it is very cold, living things since it is really cold, living things like plants and animals take much longer to decay, so it makes it the process for those decayed living things to get back in the soil. So, not that many different plants are able to survive in a taiga environment. We will now update the non-living factors column of our taiga row. We're going to add the temperature and the soil type. As we did our exploration, we were able to discover the temperature in a taiga is usually negative 60 degrees. It's very cold and dry. The soil, because of the weather, is very thin. You will now have 2 minutes to add that into your journal. We have now explored two different environments, a grassland and a taiga. You have updated your journal and we have seen the different non-living factors and living factors that make up these environments. Tomorrow we will continue to explore two additional environments on our planet Earth.